You're going to love this episode. You get to meet my coach on this episode. And yes, he's going to transform your life like he has mine. And look, I talk about diet variation. I talk about supplement rotation and how it is transformative. Well, you're going to learn the 3 exercises we all need to be doing. You're going to learn how to vary your exercise, take your results through the roof, what not to do, what to do. And my coach even opens up some stuff that he's going to give to you. So man, you're going to get blown away by this episode of Cell TV. Check it out. I want to give thanks to one of our sponsors, CytoDefend. Look, at a time like this, I think that our immune system and keeping our immune system up right now is more important than ever. I can also tell you that I pay attention to the things that keep my immune system on par and healthy. So glad that CytoDefend is one of our sponsors here on Cell TV. And it's a product that I use, my family uses, and hopefully you'll check it out. And by the way, you can check it out with the link right here below. If you want to try a free bottle, you can actually get a free bottle, just pay the shipping. And I think you'll reorder after that, but check it out.
If you're listening to this podcast and want to access the amazing CytoDefend product Dr. Pompa just mentioned, please visit freeimmunity.com. Again, that's freeimmunity.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cellular Healing TV. I'm Ashley Smith, and today we welcome personal trainer Deacon Andrews. We all know Dr. Pompa loves variation, from diet to fasting and even supplements. Well, the way we exercise is no different. So let's hear what methods Dr. Pompa has implemented to completely transform his workouts from the man who works with him personally. So let's get started and welcome Deacon Andrews and, of course, Dr. Pompa to the show. Welcome, both of you.
Hey, guys. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks, Dr. Pompa, for having me on. Super pumped to share some of what we've been doing and let people learn from it.
Yeah, well, you were kicking my butt this morning, so now I'm going to get even. I'm just going to give you these super hard questions that there's no possible way you could answer them. No.
Perfect. I love it.
All right. No, listen, I'm blessed to have you as my trainer. That's for sure. Well, let me start with the story, right? Gosh, I have so many stories. First of all, I had Kathy Smith on here. I'm going to start in a weird story. I am going to throw you off a little bit with this one, right? So those of you who don't know Kathy Smith, okay, as a kid growing up in the 80s, right, I had 2 posters on my wall, embarrassingly enough, okay? I had Farrah Fawcett and I had Kathy Smith. Kathy Smith was she was the bomb, okay? The 80s, and she was the first to bring exercise to a DVD. Well, DVD, we didn't have DVD. Was it 8 tracks, Deacon?
It was like VHS tapes, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so that's how I first knew Kathy Smith. Now Kathy Smith lives here in Park City. We're good friends. And then I realized that Deacon was working out Kathy Smith. Okay, just say enough right there. Deacon works out Kathy Smith because she is the exercise guru. To this day, by the way, if you saw Kathy Smith, how old is she?
Yeah, she's going to be 70. And I'm like, I want to look like that now.
Folks, you wouldn't believe it. I'm not kidding. She is unbelieviously fit to this day. Deacon works her out. So, anyway.
She keeps me on my toes. She's like, come on, let's make this a little harder. Are you sure? I'm like,
oh yeah, exactly. She's something. But anyway, so Deacon, tell the story, because I didn't know you two knew each other. I saw you work around. I'm like, Kathy, and then you're like, well, yeah. She said, you got to hear this story, Dr. Pompa. Tell the story.
So Kathy and my dad met. I mean, literally, Kathy Smith was at my house doing some projects with my dad the day that I was born.
Yeah.
So when my mom went into labor, she and my dad were starting this they were like kicking around the idea of doing this countrywide fitness program. And it was called like TNT or something like that. Mm-hmm. And where they were going to really kind of push at home workouts and VHS stuff. And so they've just been great friends ever since. But I literally have known Kathy my entire life. But I started, when we moved to Park City 6.5 years ago, I just kind of bumped into her, and we had not like kept up or anything like that. And she's like, "Oh, you're from Virginia. She's like, do you know Deacon Boo Andrews?" Like, "Yeah, those are my parents." And I was like, "Yeah, I know who you are." And she's like, all of a sudden it all came together real quick. And she's a legend.
Yeah, no,
And just
she's an actual legend. Yeah, she
in
really
so
is.
many ways. And when she hit me up and was about training, I was just like, "Well, what am I gonna do for you?" And it's been fun. We've gotten a chance to kick around a lot of ideas and kind of write articles, and we come from different kind of approaches. And it's been fun to just talk about the importance of strength for longevity. And it's kind of like, I like to say, it's kind of the fountain of youth. And the big thing for me and the challenge with her is literally, she's one of those few people you meet. I have no pain. And I'm like, okay, well, I usually have people come to me that are in pain, and I fix that. So it really made me think about, what am I doing? Because it is so easy to overdo things or whatever and create pain. So it really put me on my toes in a different way than I was used to, because I don't want to take away from anything that she has, because I mean, she's crushing it.
Yeah, my God.
And so we were just trying to add a little bit of stability and strength into her program. And getting her to remotely sit still or take rests is the biggest challenge, because she is just the energy level of a teenager, and it's amazing. And I'm like, whatever she is doing, follow it, get on there, listen to her, and she is living the life to the fullest. And it's just fun to be here.
She's still worthy of a poster on anyone's wall.
Oh,
she's built like amazing, and she's beautiful, and her personality is as beautiful. And yeah, she's an amazing woman. I have to have her back on Cell TV, and and I'm going to flip it. I'm going to have her tell the story of you being a baby and her your dad actually figuring out this workout thing. So, anyways, you've been around the industry obviously a long time, and you can see, folks. He is a military guy. He looks like one, doesn't he? Yeah, he looks like a bear. He looks like he works on a farm. Oh, he actually does that too. So exactly the way he looks. Yep, that's Deacon. So okay, let me tell my story. Right. So I preach and teach variation in exercise, diet, in supplement routine, everything. Variation creates a stress called hormesis. I'm going to just kind of brief on that in a minute. I'm actually going to pull up a PowerPoint because I want y'all to understand this. Okay, so when I go into the gym, I always change the exercises that I do from the time before. I change my intensity, my reps, right? However, I saw Marilee, that's my wife, y'all know that, but she was working with Deacon, and she says, "You got to work with him. He's making me do all these things, this and that, the other thing." So I was like, "Oh, great, exercise variation." I have this knee tendonitis thing that affecting me on my bike. All right, let's see what he can do with that, and let's just mix it up a bit. Well, he mixed it up a lot. Okay, so I just said today during our workout, right? I said, "Man, it's like you have applied so much functional strength in me. I can't tell you." Meaning strength that now applies to me awkwardly picking up my heavy suitcase, and y'all know I travel a lot. I mean, functional strength.
And your dog.
Like every aspect of my dog, right? That's how I originally hurt my back. But I mean, all of this, as I was doing this exercise you have me doing, it's always like you have me doing these things. I'm always like struggling to kind of do it first, right? Because they're so odd to me. And I was telling Ashley, I said, he had me doing this thing. It seems so simple, where you take your toe and you rotate your leg out. What do you call those, glute something? The ones I did today.
Glute taps, just because they
right?
fry that glute.
I barely do them. I literally, the first time I did them, I said, "Who can do this?" I'm like, "Dude, can you do this?" Right? I'm like, because it was so hard for me, and I'm so strong, I'm so in shape, right? I couldn't even do it. And he's like, "The reason you can't do it," then he did it, right? Boop, boop, boop. I'm like, "Okay, what is going on?" He's like, "Because you have no mobility in your hips, right? As we age, and I'm 56, it's like, I didn't know it. I was losing mobility in my hip joints, the three-dimensional joint, right? I didn't know that was that. But see, that was affecting my back. It was affecting my knees unknowingly to me. So he has me doing all these weird things with this hip rotation stuff and doing it 5 different ways. The bottom line is I do those things now. I'm like, beep, 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 right? I
Yeah.
just saw it today, right? Anyways, but the point is now I have all this functional movement that I didn't even realize I was losing as I was aging. So, you have transformed, you've made me do things that I would never have done. You've made me more functionally strong. You've balanced out these little intrinsic muscles that were weakening. I didn't know it. You've brought mobility into my joints that I would have never been able to do because I didn't even know it was not lacking. I didn't even know it was lacking. Taking stress off my knees, and all because, you made me do something very, very different. So first of all, thank you for that. But let's talk about, on that note alone, I want to give you the opportunity to comment before I talk about this variation in hormesis.
Yeah, I think, again, with a lot of the stuff that you talk about, and knowledge is power, and it's giving people the tools. And for me, unfortunately and fortunately, I've been injured a lot, and I've pushed myself to the limit, and had to, I finally got to the point that the pain that I was living in was debilitating. It wasn't just, like we talked about today, a lot of people wear their pain as a badge of honor, or just, the normal aches and pains. But for me, I'd finally gotten to the point where I couldn't enjoy my life at all. I couldn't do the things I wanted to do. And so I had to really relearn, and I sought out people that was like, what is it that's missing? And and is it Shakira and then Chubbs and Happy Gilmore, the hips don't lie, and it's all in the hips, and like we joke about, but it's so true, because that's the center of everything. And I just realized, for me, how much we don't move and how much we get stuck in a pattern. There is a very important thing to learn proper movement, but we see it every day in the gym. We see people that have done the same thing for years, and they are still surprised, literally like the same routine every day. And we don't think to get out of the really looking at the joints. How are they supposed to work? Is it actually a stability issue, and being able to control that joint that's preventing mobility? And for you, as soon as you started to get some control over the glute and hip, that thing was just moving all over the place, and it was great. And then your low back started to stabilize more. Yeah. So it's just sometimes it's one, I know for me, I had to learn to humble myself and be excited about working with a coach. I still work with a coach. I still have people that I send videos to because I can't see it. And we sometimes we're looking for something, but we're not looking in the right place.
Well, we talked about that all the time, because I couldn't see certain things, right? Like I was doing, like even what things that I was doing that I do, you were like, oh man, no, you got to raise your butt up, and and I'm like, oh yeah, that's like really different. Listen, I tell this audience, everyone should have a coach, right? And finally I practice what I preach and exercise. Dude, look, I've been working out since I was 15 years old. The only time I didn't is for a 4, maybe 5-year period when I was so sick, I couldn't. I didn't have enough energy, right? But other than that, I've never not worked out. Yeah, I varied my workouts. Like I explained in the beginning, the difference is you took my variation to a massive different level. You looked at things very differently than I did. And that's why we need a coach. And that's why oftentimes we need to vary things far different than we could ever without someone else looking at our patterns, our movement patterns. So, all right, I'm going to show this. Watch this. I'm going to, because now this is a principle. And I always want my audience to understand premise first. Because if your major premise is understood and your major premise is real and true, then all else follows is true, right? If your major premise is wrong, then all else follows is wrong. So I want you to understand the major premise, my audience here, and Deacon, I know you understand it, but I want them to understand it. Okay, so tell me when. Can you see that?
Yeah.
All right. Hormesis. I've talked about it. You've heard me mention it. Hormesis, I'm just going to read the definition and then bring life to it. Hormesis refers to adaptive responses of biological systems, that's us, to moderate environmental or self-imposed challenges. That's exercise, self-imposed challenges, not environmental, although this does apply to that too. That would be toxins, so oftentimes, and other stresses. But we impose these challenges on ourselves to get an adaptation, is what it's saying, through which the system improves its functionality and or tolerance to more severe stresses. Okay, so if we look at this little graph, there's green zone and we have a red zone. Now, what this is showing is, in that dotted line that goes between them, that's basically if you had no stress at all, you would have no improvement at all. But if we stress the system, we actually start to rise up in the benefit. This green zone, we call this the hormetic zone. That means where we're getting the maximum benefit. Now, if we stress too much, we will fall below the line into this adverse reaction where we see the red. Okay, now that applies to just about everything. I even apply it to diet. I apply it to fasting. The right amount of fasting, awesome. Too much, not good, right? If you've been on the same diet forever, in the beginning, it's great because it's new to your body. Stay on the same diet, it ends up very bad. Okay, now let's look at exercise. I taught at a very big seminar this weekend, and I taught on this principle, and this is the example that people go, I get it. So here's the same graph now using exercise. See the dotted line? That means if you're a couch potato and you get no stress, you will create disease. You will create inflammation, joints that literally stop moving, muscles that atrophy, bad stuff, heart that gets worse. Okay. As we add stress, we get all of these benefits. We get all the natural production of antioxidants, and we decrease inflammation, and all these great things happen. But if we exercise too much, like the aerobics instructor of the 1980s and 90s that was doing 14 classes a week, and they look like they are couch potatoes, but meanwhile they're doing all this exercise. Okay, they've went over the hormetic zone to where they're doing too much stress, creating inflammation, insulin resistance, mitochondrial dysfunction. So the right amount in this hormetic zone is where we get all the benefit. Here's the problem, Deacon. The problem is that people go to the gym. Maybe you haven't been to the gym in a while, and you do a simple routine and you get a benefit. In the first month, man, you're benefiting, it seems like every week, and then you're not. And then, Deacon, you pointed out that you see people doing the same routine for years. Well, what's happened is they now have gotten to a place where they're not adding enough stress because they're doing the same thing, and they're out of the hormetic zone, getting absolutely no benefit. What do? They get frustrated. They hire a trainer like Deacon, hopefully like Deacon, and the trainer just makes them do different things. And all of a sudden they're getting results again. Okay, now let me apply it. What else happens? Or they're sitting at 12 o'clock midnight watching TV, unhappy with themselves, maybe eating ice cream, and an ad comes on for, we'll just call it Machine X. Or what was the ab trainers? Remember those things? What were those things called? The ab roller. Ab roller. Okay, let's just use that. You see the ab roller, you get the ab roller, and you order it, and you start doing the ab roller, and this is amazing, right? Or the TRX thing, whatever it is. But then it stops working, so it ends up in the closet, right? So we think in our minds that it was the ab roller or the TRX, right? The new device. No, it was the change. The new device created a new stress, and thereby your body reacted. But after a month of doing the TRX, it becomes the same stress in your body. It doesn't force your body to adapt. Therefore, you don't get any result. Okay, so that sets up why I believe varying your exercise is absolutely necessary to keep increasing the stress to stay in this hormetic zone of benefit. If you do the same exercise all the time, even though I thought I was doing different exercises, because listen, folks, I was going in doing high reps one day, heavy weight the next, different exercises. However, I was still working in the same planes, as Deacon said. And that's why my hips were starting to, I don't want to say fuse, but lack motion and functionality. My shoulders were lacking functionality, and Deacon busted me out of that. So he brought all kinds of variation. So the point is, comment on that, because the variation is oftentimes the missed magic in exercise.
It is. And again, just like what we see on that, like people like to go to extremes. You see, like I said, when you come in, no matter what you're doing, and when you start to move, you're going to get better. And there's something very important about understanding movement and getting a movement down. And, it's like if you learn a new skill set, you don't immediately go to the next level. You kind of drill that skill set. And for you, we have done a lot of variability because one of your training history, and every week it's been kind of building up. The movements have pretty much all stayed in the same pattern but we've progressed on them. And then, so for me, typically, I like to use a very similar, when someone's kind of in a good, where things are firing right and we can really focus on strength. I like 3-week phases. And the volume changes week to week, but then after 3 weeks, we need to adjust the exercise because you should have gotten proficient at that exercise. And a lot of times, just like you've experienced, we had to get proficient at it before we could load it or move to another variation that we can then load. And like even today, by your third or fourth set of that Cossack squat, that lateral lunge, you were so much more in tune with what was happening that it was such a deeper, more beneficial movement to you.
Yeah.
So then we progressed through that. But we have to also understand that we need to adapt. And again, if we just pick one thing and stick with it over and over, our body's going to adapt to it and we're going to get used to it. And we're not going to get better. It's like cycling is a great example. Once you get to a proficient level on your bike, you're not going to really ride your bike to get that much better.
It's true.
You have to change a way because you become so proficient at it. It's not as hard of a workout.
See, because the magic is you don't get stronger in the gym or on the bike. You get stronger in the adaptation of the stress. So if your body perceives it not really as much of a stress anymore because you've got so proficient, to your point, then you don't force adaptation. Folks, the magic happens in the body's adaptation. I always say that's where the hormone optimization occurs. So if I'm, in the gym, even though in my mind I was varying it, I was very adapted to these planes of motion.
Right. It was stuff you knew, like you knew how to do really well.
Yeah.
And your body was used to it. So we've drastically changed the plane and the movement pattern. And it's just automatically, that alone is going to make you stronger. And it kind of allows to break down some ideas that, to get stronger at a squat, bench, and a deadlift, you got to squat, bench, and deadlift.
Right.
That's not really the case a lot of times. Like there's so many things when you get strong in those things that you kind of hit a wall and then like, all right, what are the limiting factors? Okay, well, let's look at what's not firing, so, and like, from what you guys, what you talk about with nutrition and things like that, sometimes it's doing that takeaway and looking like what is not working.
Right. Because
sometimes there may be an allergy or something that you are deficient in that is preventing the proper amount of like gut health and things like that. And it's, again, if you just keep spinning the wheel, you're missing the
same thing happens when people eat the same diet, right? When they first get on a diet, let's plant-based, keto, whatever it is, they get this result, right? At first it's hard, right? Just like the first week in the gym, right? So at first it's hard, and then they get typically a very good result. But here's what happens. Because they get a good result, it locks them into this is the diet for me, right? They start exercising, they get a result. So this is how you exercise, right? And then this is what they continue to do. And then what studies show is you literally get diminishing results doing the same thing that actually worked in the beginning. And this, that applies to diet. So one of the things that we do, Deacon, is we force people to change diets very drastically. I call it feast, famine cycling. I have seasonal changes, monthly changes. But what it does is, once again, same as exercise, it actually forces the body to adapt. When you start taking in new foods you haven't really eaten a lot of, your microbiome goes, okay, we got to create new enzymes. This is a different thing. There's more fat. We got to break that down. So your microbiome, your gut bacteria starts to send signals to your cells and creates changes the environment, you create something called gut diversity, and your immune system literally changes, all because your body adapted to a dietary change. So all of that, Deacon, I wrote a book on fasting. Why does fasting work? It's a stress that it forces your body to adapt to so it doesn't die. And matter of fact, I have to show you the next slide, because I think that if I go, I have to screen share. Hold on. I just did myself an injustice, but I'm going to show one more slide, and I didn't plan on showing this, but I'm going to screen share. Do you know who that guy is? Can you see my slide right there? I'll just show that slide right there. Do you know who that is right there?
I can't see it.
All right, let me blow it up. But you might not. Most people, I would say, don't. But let me enlarge my. Can you see my screen?
No.
Oh, well, that's a problem. Can you see it now? How about now? Wait, it says screen share has failed to start. Please try again later. Okay, well, it's not letting me. I was going to show you a nice picture of Wim Hof in an ice bath, but you're not going to
talk about someone who's learned about adaptation.
Yeah, exactly. I wish I don't know why it's not sharing, but it's not. But anyway, the bottom line is that Wim Hof, if I was, really curious to see how many people actually recognize him. Kind of looks like Deacon. But anyway, so the bottom line is this guy gets in ice baths for like eon. I mean, he gets in for hours upon hours. Here's my point. If I went into the ice bath for that long, I would die. Okay, I would.
Right.
I'd go into hyperthermia, right? He has gradually got his body to adapt to more and more stress. But what happens when you go into an ice bath? Because most people today realize there's all these anti-inflammatory benefits. You can break through weight loss resistance. You have all these amazing things that happen. Well, what happens? Your body thinks it's going to die. It upregulates norepinephrine. Norepinephrine downregulates inflammation, upregulates growth hormone. All these wonderful things happen because you added a stress, forced your body to adapt to the stress, and you get the benefit. Now, if you stayed in as long as Wim Hof, you die. You went over the benefit. Or what if you stayed in 6 minutes instead of 3? Your body doesn't adapt because it was too much stress. Now you made a good thing a bad thing.
Right.
So the point is that you can overtrain, you can undertrain, you can do the same exercise, and that's something that you mitigate with all of the different changes that you do.
And I think it's something that we see again, where people operate. We have this culture now that's so instant gratification that we have the one group that's just stuck in a rut, and then they don't give themselves enough time to get the adaptation. It's like, we're not going to just do something for a week and be like, I don't like it didn't work. I'm going to change.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys. Like, how long have you given yourselves the time to get to where you are that you don't like? Give yourself time, And so what's a typical cycle for you guys as far as your nutrition? Like when you go through those?
Well, like, for example, one is like, even if someone's been low carb for a while, we always add in 1 or 2 feast days a week, which is magic because it just simply reminds the body it's not starving, and it's very enough to actually throw the microbiome off. We all have 5 days a month where we like to either feast for 5 days, and for women, it's right typically before their cycle. And we like to fast or famine for 5 days a month, where we choose to either eat low calories for 5 days or no calories, right? So that's monthly variation, but then there's seasonal, where you can go, and that looks different for everyone. You could just do it simply seasonal. Every season, change your diet. I vary my diet far more than that. I vary my diet even as often as I travel. I'll go higher carb. I come home, I'm in ketosis again, then I get, so variation could look different for everybody, but there's seasonal, there's monthly, there's weekly. So,
yeah, and that's still consistent, and so that's the problem is people so again, for me, like hearing that, I'm like, all right, there's these monthly cycles that people need to be like consistent with and trust in the process and not do it one time. Like that doesn't work.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, you can't do that. There is a pattern of variation that actually works, because remember, you're varying it to get a higher strength. Deacon, I interviewed, it's a great episode, Kristen Verde, and she a scientist who she studied, she did this with mice and she kind of fell into this, but they varied the diet of mice where they would do 500, I'm going to say calories that make sense to humans, right? Low calorie, like a 500 calorie a day diet for a human. And then they did standard American diet, standard mouse diet. In other words, low calorie, standard mouse diet, low calorie, standard every other day. And they compared that to low fat. They compared it to high fat. They compared it to like all the different diets that would work. The varied diet worked better for weight loss than all the other diets. So when I asked her, I said, Crystal, why is that? She said, oh, it's simple. It just forces the body to adapt, like we're talking about with the exercise. And you end up with a hormone optimization. And thereby it just works better for weight loss. So, that was like a real sinking point to where I really started studying it. Yeah. But anyway, so much. Yeah, it does. It makes sense, but yet I think oftentimes we need forced to do it. I wanted you to talk a little bit about exercise myths. I said, pick some of the fun ones because a lot of what you do really breaks a lot of these standard thoughts around exercise. So tell us some of the exercise myths that most of us are thinking of.
I think one that goes perfect with just the hormesis and stuff you've been talking about is that more is better. And, so many, you and I were talking about yesterday or a couple of days ago about the idea of giving 100%. And people are like, and when I was, and we see it a lot in the endurance world, but you see it in the gym, people are like, I'm going to go in every day and I'm going to crush it. I'm going to give 100%. And they don't understand that. I understand that, like I was saying to you, yes, I understand you're giving 100% effort, but you're not actually giving 100% because you're so run down because you're just constantly crushing that people don't. So I guess the myth would be people don't understand that recovery is training.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean sit on the couch. I program active recovery days for a lot of clients, and that is, it would be like a bike ride or just a hike, moving and not necessarily putting stress on the body because but it's good or bad stress. Stress is stress, and it's filling that cup up. And if that cup overflows, we're in trouble.
You go outside the hormetic curve pretty damn fast is what happens.
And, again, we see so many people in that red area that you were showing on the curve, and they're just redlined all the time versus just like the diet idea of a high-low, training needs to be high-low.
So you're in the gym working your butt off harder than normal, and you're actually in that red zone of the hormetic curve, where you're actually getting worse, not better. And that's when injuries start happening, Deacon.
Right. And the fatigue and, it's very rare that we see, let's talk about like a pulled hamstring. It's very rare that we see someone like a sprinter or whatever pull their hamstring at max effort. It is typically slowing down or when they are not like putting out is because they're fatigued or whatever, but it is not producing force. So when we are in a place that we can actually work at our like highest potential, our body's safe. But when it starts to break down, the body's an amazing thing at what it can handle, and it's gonna break down to force it to recover.
Yeah,
like right. If you don't recover, your body's gonna get you to that point of, hey, I'm gonna make you take a break.
So more is not better.
A great example of this, actually looking at that curve again, was what we saw with the people that really struggled sickness-wise from COVID were the side that wasn't doing anything and what we recognize as unhealthy. But then we saw it a lot in the fight community and even in the CrossFit community of professional athletes, people that we would look at and be like, they are the pinnacle of like fitness. But there's a difference between fitness and health as well,
Oh,
because they were
oh.
so overstressed that, just like your slide showed, they couldn't handle that either, and they would get wrecked.
Yeah, they couldn't even handle a virus that they
bad.
should recover from. And then this 45-year-old, I saw him get so sick, right? What they didn't know is he was in the red zone hormetically, burning it at work, not sleeping, exercising, thinking, but he's so healthy. He eats well and he's exercising all the time. Yeah, but he was in the red zone on the hormetic
and
curve.
that is just not a place that we want to be. So just like what you were talking about, and it's just the perfect example, there's that sweet spot. We want to train hard. You need to train hard enough to force adaptation, to force your body to change, but you need to recover as hard just as well. That doesn't mean, if one hard workout was good, or an hour of a hard workout was good, 2 hours is even better. No, that's not the case.
A myth. Yeah,
it's a myth. I always like to use the drinking analogy. If I drink, sure, maybe I want a tiny little buzz, but I don't want it to. I don't want to be out of control. I definitely don't want to feel it the next day. I don't want it to inhibit me in any way. Just because I could do a bunch more shots doesn't mean it's going to be a good idea.
Probably really bad.
And training's that way. Or look at ibuprofen or whatever. You don't want to, just because it says take 4, 6 or 7 isn't going to be better. You don't want to create this place where your body is having to fight. You want to train hard enough that it needs to recover and adapt, but not to the point that it's going to break down.
Yeah, you want to create more stress, to create more adaptation, to create more hormone optimization, to get better results. Okay, but we can create that stress by changing exercise, by changing the way you do things, by challenging your body. Because remember, to your body, it's perceived stress. You think you're creating stress by just pounding it more. But the problem is you end up in that red zone. But if you create stress the right way, if you create stress by what we just described, stacking things, doing things different, progressing, now you're creating stress, which creates adaptation, which creates hormone optimization, which creates better results. So it's the way you create the stress that keeps you in the hormetic zone. Change the stress to keep you in the hormetic zone, not pound the pavement. Okay, that's the best.
Actually, and I'm gonna simplify this myth 1. Best way that I've never explained it this way, but
beautiful.
Myth 1: you're not getting better when you're training. You're only getting better when you're sleeping and recovering.
That's it. All right, there you go.
Myth
1 is you get better in the training. Nope, it's you get better with proper recovery. Hormone.
That's when your body is healing and reaping the benefits. So
yeah. Myth 1: don't violate hormesis. Or lesson 1: don't violate hormesis. What does that mean? You'll find out. All right. Myth 2.
I think one of the biggest ones is that strength training is going to make me stiff and immobile. And we hear that. I think a lot of people, when you think of strength training, they think of a giant bodybuilder. And so that is, but it's not the case. We are actively using strength with you to improve mobility. You and I we do not like to stretch. We're not people that just I don't want to just sit down and stretch. But if we are using the right movements, like the lateral lunge that we were doing today, Bulgarian split squats, and all these things, and you are doing them in the proper range of motion with the right activation stability, you are stretching the muscle and activating the antagonist muscle. So proper strength training should be improving mobility, not creating this stiff person. And I'm someone that's I'm a big dude, and people are always surprised, especially when I do jujitsu, at how mobile I am.
Oh, yeah, I attribute man.
a lot of that to strength training. Yeah. Because that's the only stretching I do.
But by the way, you actively stretch me. By the way, it's the first time I can actually put my palms on the ground. My son, we were in the kitchen last night and I outdid him, which wasn't hard, by the way. But anyway, so that was amazing. But you have me do the stretches kind of in active movements, right? So it's not like I'm stretching my hamstrings. You have me do the 3 things today that were stretching my hamstrings. in my glutes while I was doing the exercise. And again, what's happened to me, look, I was doing squats. I could do heavy squats, but my knees are they're stronger now doing what we've been doing because of these movements. You added strength to my knees and my hips that I haven't had in years.
I'll take that every day.
Yeah. All right. Yep. So, all right, one more myth, and then I want you to give our viewers 3 things that you said, hey, everyone should be doing these 3 simple things. Takes 30 minutes, and you're going to talk about why. And then you've also provided for our viewers in the show notes the videos on how to do them, so you don't have to follow along. But one more myth, and we'll go to that.
Lifting's going to make me big. And this kind of obviously leans more towards women, but also endurance athletes. It's just the amount of time and supplementation and volume that truly has to go into getting big is something that very few men or women will achieve. You know, for us, our goal, we're not trying to be most of the people that I train, actually all of them, because I stopped training gym-based athletes a few years ago just because my heart wasn't in it. There's nothing wrong with that. If that is your passion, if your hobby is powerlifting, CrossFit, or whatever, that's what you love doing, that's awesome. That's just not my passion anymore. And my passion's playing outside in the mountains as long as I can. And strength is a huge component of that. So I don't want to be bigger, but I want to be strong and durable. So we are working out the minimum amount we need to maximize the results out. And with that premise, we're not going to get big. You truly have to put in a massive effort and in the gym and in the kitchen to get big. Women, women listening to this, I don't want to make any of you big. I want you to be lean, and that's muscle. Tone is not really a thing. It's muscle. And that's what that toned look is. And Kathy, back to Kathy, is a great example of someone. And that's kind of our goal now is to build her a little bit more muscle because she is so active and on the go all the time. So our training, when she was with me, it kills her because it is so boring. And I'm like, let's focus on strength. And she loves to move. She is, again, I want her energy. I want it now, much less at 7.
Everyone does.
She's just amazing. But do not be afraid of lifting heavy weights appropriate to what your body can handle and technique, with the thought of getting big, whether you're an endurance athlete or a lady who's a woman who's, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Women are oftentimes afraid of that, but that is definitely not going to happen. You have to force calories and protein, typically even beyond ridiculous amounts of crazy, stuff in the gym to do that. It's not going to happen. The fact of the matter is oftentimes you make my own body weight extremely heavy, right? Because of the way you do the movement. And I'm like, dying to get 8 reps out of something. Meanwhile, I don't even have a weight in my hand. All right. With that said, show us or explain why these 3 exercises you're giving our viewers. And by the way, again, Ashley, we're putting them in the show notes. There'll be video of Deacon actually showing you how to do these 3 movements, but why this? And you can kind of explain them.
Yeah. So there's 3 things that are going to, again, my goal is to make everybody as durable as possible. The first one is just a weighted carry, a farmer's walk. We do some variation of this every day.
Every time you do something, you do some variation of that with me because it's stabilization. And
the biggest reason is the easiest way to learn to stabilize your core and brace. When that happens, your hips are going to move better. So it's very rare that we don't start a session without carrying something. But again, for people that just want 3 simple things, movement 1, carry something. And now in the show notes, we'll have multiple different variations. But you can do overhead, you can do offset, which is just one side.
Yeah, you change it with me all the time.
And all I'm trying to do is to get the core to wake up, keep the ribs neutral, get the hips in a neutral position so they can move. Movement 2 is a stiff-legged deadlift or a Romanian deadlift. We do this with you. We've done kickstand where we have one foot offset, single leg variations, or we go heavy with the traditional stiff-legged deadlift. But to build a strong posterior chain is going to be the thing that just builds durability for life. And that also means that we get a strong, better looking butt, which, functional and good looking butts are great for everybody. Everybody loves that.
Everybody.
If we can work well and look good, everybody wins.
It's a win-win. We do a lot of glute work.
That movement is so valuable because, one, you're not going to load it as much as a traditional deadlift, but it really teaches you how to activate the core, move the hips in a good pattern. And again, we do this in multiple variations of bilateral, just feet side by side, unilateral, offset, single leg. Like there's so many variations to do this.
You'll have the video.
And we'll put that up. And then third movement that we can't say enough about is something we do a lot of is reverse hyper variations. Because a strong low back is going to be just the saving grace of everything, whether it's
I love that
picking up your groceries, carrying a grandbaby, a baby, whatever. It is invaluable.
But by the way,
ultimately all those things come down to a strong core and
be
hips.
Cautious. Hyper is very different than reverse hyper. Yes. Check out the video. Very different because hypers hurt my back. Reverse hypers transform my back. So not good. And Deacon, first of all, I want to thank you. You also opened up that you virtually, for some of my viewers and listeners, you will take them on and train them, which, you actually love doing. Deacon can only work with so many people. So first come, first serve. But we will also put your contact information in there for people who want to hire you like I did virtually. You don't have to be in Park City to hire Deacon. But he's only able to work with so many at one time. He's opened up some slots for my viewers. Thank you for that, Deacon. Because I said to him, people are going to want to hire you. And he loves doing the online virtual stuff now. And he has a whole program that's going to blow you away. So take advantage of that, Deacon. Thank you for doing that. And I know that
absolutely
probably overbook you on that, but first come, first serve, folks. So get into it there, and we'll provide that information. Deacon, thank you for being on Cellular Healing TV. I'll give you the final word. Fire away.
Dr. Pompa, just thank you for the opportunity. And just, one of the things that's been fun is just our getting to explore things and learn from each other. And so I just really appreciate the friendship and the fun that we have, and just I'm excited to share any of the knowledge that we troubleshoot a lot. We figure a lot of things out, and getting the opportunity to grow as a coach and share that with you're
amazing. Well, you figured out my knees, man.
And,
you thought around it differently than I was. I was trying to figure it out. You know me, man. I was digging. I was, and Deacon was the first to say some logical things, and I'm like, missed it. Everybody needs a coach, even Pompa. And Deacon, you transformed my life, and thank you for taking on some of my viewers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity to come on and talk to you guys.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks again. Hey, I want to tell you about one of our sponsors, Cyto Detox. Look, podcasts cost money. There's a lot of production going around this, but we are grateful to have Cyto Detox as one of the sponsors. It's so easy for me to talk about the product because myself and my family use it constantly as we practice what I preach. For over 15 years, I've talked about and taught doctors and the public about cellular detox. And I'll tell you, Cyto was a breakthrough. Cyto was a breakthrough for us. And it's changed so many lives. So we're grateful that they sponsor Cellular Healing TV. It makes sense, doesn't it? They should.
If you're listening to this podcast and want to access the amazing Cyto Detox product Dr. Pompa just mentioned, please visit detoxoffer.com. Again, that's detoxoffer.com. Well, that's it for this week. The materials and content within this podcast are intended as general information only and are not to be considered a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you would like to purchase some of the supplements mentioned on this show, please visit the site as seen on CHTV.com and use the code CHTV15 for 15% off. Again, that's as seen on CHTV.com. Use the code CHTV15 for 15% off. And as always, thanks for listening.